Ark Survival Evolved has got a variety of players and obviously different playing styles. Now personally, I am a PvE player and I generally specialise in doing Ark top 10s, and I wanted to do maybe just half that amount and do a top 5 today of just 5 creatures which I can't really live without in Ark, and that I just wouldn't play the game or would struggle playing the game if I did not have them by my side. In number 5, we have got the Baryonyx. This is the absolute caving beast of Ark. Come on, when it comes to doing caves, yes, you could use something like the Shadowmane or the Thyla if it fits. Sometimes it has a little bit of trouble, but the Barry has always been the go-to for me. You can call me old-fashioned in that sense if you want, because it is sort of the OG when it comes to it. But I really love using the Barry, and I'm so used to using the Barry that I just have to use it for caves. And if I've got a cave where the Barry fits and, you know, I'm going there, I'm going to be using a Baryonyx in that cave. I love their swimming as well. It's really great for underwater caves too, and they have that spin attack. They can stun creatures up to the side for Megalodon. It is pretty reasonable if you ask me, and they deal good damage on top of that, and their health is by no means bad at all. And you could do some decent tanking with this thing. Obviously not turret tanking in a PvP situation, but you can tank enough damage that you can get through the caves perfectly fine if you've got a decent level 1. In number 4, we have got the Spinosaurus. Now, I was going to put the Rex on here, but I've been using Spinos way more for boss fights lately, and I think they are sort of just better. They are a lot more mobile than the Rex, and they're so much easier to get through things like the Tech Cave, especially on the island. Maybe they don't have quite the health of the Rex, but they have a little bit more punch when it comes to damage. And again, if you spend some time getting some breeding mutations done or just leveling up your creatures, you can get a Spino which has great health and deals amazing amounts of damage as well. And of course, on top of all of that, they're way more mobile than the Rex, and you're not going to struggle with any issues that you will with the Rex and just them being absolutely stupid and not functioning properly as creatures. Even in ASA with the new Dino AI, Rexes are still all over the place compared to a creature like a Spino when it comes to mobility, and I think that's where it wins it over for me in terms of doing bosses. While Megatheriums and things like that are great too, the Spino is sort of my go-to standard boss creature at the moment. Next up, we have got the Yutyrannus, and come on, this does need to be here. The UT is one of those creatures where if you just don't bring it to a boss fight, yeah, maybe you might not lose, but you really do up your chances a lot in winning that boss fight if you got yourself a UT. It just basically does 25% damage increase on your creatures and a 25% damage deficit for everyone else. I can't remember if it was 20 or 25. Either way, those margins are pretty significant when it comes to a boss fight, especially if it's over a bit of a longer period of time. The boss at the end of Gen 1 is a great example for this. You're going to be in that boss fight for quite a while, and a UT is really going to help you through all of that. And I think if you don't bring a UT to it, especially on a map like Gen 1 where you've got the X UTs which are even stronger than the normal UTs, the buff is the same, but in terms of their stats they are stronger. You really just have to think to yourself, why am I not using the UT? The UT is one of those creatures where I'm like, you really can't live without a UT, and it has been in the game ever since 2017, and it really does keep it up to this day as just being one of the great creatures that we should all have, and in my opinion, I can't live without. In number 2, we have got the Maewing. Now, this is one of those creatures where it is just my traveling creature, great for, you know, feeding all these dinos that I'm breeding up. And of course, it is also, maybe this is slightly eccentric of me, but it's a great berry gatherer for me. And I use this more than any other creature to gather berries. Well, I might occasionally pop out with a Stego or a Bronto or a Diplo on the off chance. Parasaurs in the early game, of course, maybe a Trike here and then, but I rarely even tame those things. Sorry, Trike lovers. The Maewing is generally what I use for berry gathering because it can gather berries and it's pretty quick and it's pretty efficient at doing it, which is why I use it. That's the only reason why I use it, but it is also a fantastic travel mount, and you really can't go wrong if you've got a Maewing on your side when it comes to traveling. They are just peak dinosaur. They are just so good as creatures. You really can't go wrong if you've got yourself a Maewing. truly, if you have never tamed yourself a Maewing and gone around with it, and you have access to a Maewing or whatever map you're playing on, then tame yourself a Maewing. You will not regret it. And just before we get into number one, I've got a brief honorable mention, as I thought I should just chuck it on the list, because why not? And it is the Allo. While in my opinion I prefer Spinos for boss fights, the Allo is a great contender as well, and really does a lot for me in terms of the boss fighting scenario. If you've got pack of 3 of them, you get that pack buff, of course. And obviously, considering their allos on top of all of that, they've got the bleed ability. They are ridiculously easy to tame. You can just tame 3 of them in one go as well. Just tame the whole pack, get a large trap, trank them out, feed them whatever meat you want. I'm usually feeding them mutton because I'm not going to work up to kibble, and I don't want to wait so long by feeding them raw meat. And prime is just harder to get for me than mutton. I know mutton's sort of rarer, but I've got loads of mutton lying around because I always go hunt for the overseers, and I've got stack mod on so they don't spoil us any quickly. Please, Ark, allow prime meat and mutton to be stacked. It is an absolute godsend when you start using it, and when you start using it, you really can't stop. But yeah, the Allo is a brief honorable mention because although it's not in my top 5, it might be in one of yours. And obviously, if you know me, I've got to put this creature in at number 1, and it is the Deinonychus. It is an amazing boss creature for me. It deals the bleed ability and the bleed ability to bosses. And as far as I'm concerned, it is the only creature that can do this within reason. Someone said there's a Factionist can do it to bosses as well, but, you know, I wouldn't be using one of those. And I'm on ASC and not ASA, so I do not have the Factionist. I don't even have ASA installed on my computer right now. But, you know, I've got ASE installed, and that's the game that I played. This is more of an ASE list, if you couldn't tell already. But the Dine spawns on Valguero. It is amazing at climbing, general traversing. It takes no fall damage. It is super speedy. I have no problems with the mobility of this thing whatsoever. It is just amazing for everything. It deals bleed damage to bosses. It has the pack buff. It can grip on to large creatures and absolutely tear them to shreds. Boss fights have never been easier with the Deinonychus, and I really love them for it, and it's why I think they are the best creature out there for me. And in my opinion, I really can't live without the Deinonychus in the game. They are insane great. If you have never tamed one before, it's the same tame method as the Wyverns. You just got to go into the Chalk Cliffs region, find a dino nest, and steal those eggs, raise them up, or you can just take one. Of course, you don't have to be greedy. And then you've raised yourself up some Deinonychuses. They are truly amazing. I can't recommend them enough. And give it up for our patrons, Ekaterina Puchkova and Karina Thorne, Dominic Maciejewski, sorry about that name, and everyone else that's on this list. All the people I've mentioned are paid members, and if you feel like that's something you want a shout out at the end of the video, go join the Patreon or become a paid YouTube member.